of our talk, and we've gone through the book on immune boosting secrets, and we hope that was a blessing, and hope you that kind of showed you how the value of that book and how that can be used as evangelism tool, but also just having it yourself and being able to help answer some questions or alleviate some fears, and put some get some people some hope on what they can do.
I think I want to real quick, as I have this in my mind, we keep talking about going out and spreading this message on people who aren't non-believers, but even in our churches right now, there's a lot of people who have fear, a lot of fear that's going on. So even teaching this in our churches is going to be a great tool too. So, we have to keep that in mind, that there's a lot of people who aren't following these natural remedies, they're not taking care of their health. So it does begin with us first before we can go out.
I like how one place, I can't remember who says it, but they refer to them as the 8 doctors, personal doctors, or is that how they?
Yeah, the 8
personal doctors. So.
Yep, 8 personal doctors.
Just different ways of referring to it.
Yep.
And Melanie poked in here earlier, and she said, "There's 10, there's 10."
Yeah.
And then at the break, Leighton gave me a handout of Mark and Melanie's that actually lists out the 10 natural remedies, the 10 health remedies. So the ones that are left out of the normal 8 are, you have the normal 8, plus you have herbs are listed on here, and a clear conscience are listed on here.
Nice.
So that's kind of what I wasn't planning on coming up with my own version or a different version. But then this term again, Imago Dei, and my affinity towards that, I started thinking, it's like, well, there's 8 letters there. And then it was like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to see what we come up with. And then the other half would be just wanted to cover that in the beginning. I'll let you take that. Is the Restaurata. Imago Dei Restaurata, image of God restored. So for me, it kind of helps solidify, because God is wanting to restore us to the image of Christ. And when Jesus returns, He's coming for those who reflect His image perfectly, right? So I kind of wanted to have something that kind of went beyond the normal 8 that we hear about. And we're going to run through these quickly, and you're going to be familiar with all of them, just a different version of it. And the first, and Stacy's going to write them down for me, it's invigorating air. And I didn't plan on putting these in any kind of order, but I like that air is first. 18. Because, how was man created? When God breathed into his nostrils. So that was a very intimate setting. God breathing into his nostrils the spirit of life. So, invigorating air. The next is, I believe, moderate to, I got to look up my list, moderate to intense exercise. And these are in development, so I'm looking for feedback on these too. So I'm welcoming feedback and any kind of insight somebody might have. Abundant rest would be the next one. And this is my favorite when I think of the 8 is garden diet. We want to get back to a garden diet. After garden diet comes obey not the flesh. Obey not the flesh. It kind of ties into the temperance. The flesh wants more. It wants to indulge. It wants conveniences, and it wants to do its thing. But we need to teach people to not obey the flesh. but the Spirit. D is for sun. D is for sun. Or it could be daylight also. Like I said, these are in development. E, we're missing, what are we missing in one of the, from the normal New Start, is, that's temperance. Trust. We're missing trust, right? Well, for trust, I have eternally grateful, comma, I trust him. Eternally grateful. It's that spirit of gratitude that changes our body function, gives us great health by being eternally grateful. And we have I trust him. Oh no, sorry, that was part of the last one. I trust him. I need plenty of water. So we got the water covered. And each one of these, whether it's New Start or God's Plan or any of those, all of them always have that, all the physical points to a higher spiritual reality. So with that, we have the 8 health laws. And as I said earlier, Melanie brought out a few more with herbs and a clear conscience. But I want to get to real quickly, Restaurata. Because this is like the meat. This is the real meat of the gospel message. And we're going to swap out these boards. Do you want it horizontal or vertical? Or do you want more chairs, or how's that?
I'll try it like this.
Okay. So when we get into the Restaurata, that's the restored. So image of God. Who was created in the image of God? Man. But can we say that, oh yes, I'm in the image of God? We have a mixture, right? We have a mixture of the image of God and another image that we don't want to be there. So we need to be restored to that image of God. So with the R, and I'm still working on these, but we're talking about that love of the truth. And in 2 Thessalonians 2:10, it says, they receive not the love of the truth that they might be saved. So what happens? Wherever you are at, whatever your background, whatever you've been raised up on, Islam, Buddhism, any of that, whatever you've been raised on, wherever part you could be in the thick wild of the Australia or in Africa, it's that love of the truth. And it says receive the love of the truth. Who has the love of the truth but God? God is the only one that's like, because think about it. Do you ever fear going to the mailbox? Because there might be truth in there you don't want to see, right? You might not want to see the truth of the phone call or hear the truth on that phone call that somebody's calling. So we don't know. We could say it's like, oh, I'm a truth seeker, or, you know, I love the truth. But in reality, there's truth that we fear but God is the only one that really has that love of the truth. And it says they receive not the love of the truth. So I look at it as a gift. God's got the love of the truth. He's willing to give it to us, and so that we could have the love of the truth. And I could tell you my own personal story on that, and how God has led me through where I was just a random molecule floating in the air, and here I needed the truth to go anywhere, realizing that I can't navigate the world on my own. I can't figure things out on my own. All I needed was that love of the truth. And that has gotten me through where I was to where I am now. And to be honest with you, God could have done much more in my life if I had been even more eager, if I had been more in love with Jesus to like change the things that I knew were offensive to him. So it's that receiving the love of the truth, which reveals our true self, because we look at the 10 Commandments, we look at the law, we look at the life of Christ, and by doing so, we see our own self. We see our own filthy rags, our desperately wickedness. from that, we go into repentance, reconciliation, restitution, and those kind of lead one into the other. For the E, you ready for the E? For the E, we have enthusiasm. So you've repented, you reconciled, you're restituted. You have restitution with others too. Now you have this enthusiasm for Jesus, and that's what the E is. Enthusiasm for Jesus, praise for the Father, and I have in parentheses song, praise, and worship, and evangelism. Yeah, enthusiasm and praise for the Father. And then with the S, we have selfless service, and in parentheses I would have Christ's methods alone. So if in the future God opens the opportunity to train others like medical and missionary work, this is what I intend to use. I intend to use this method of Imago Dei Restaurata. Because in the name itself, Imago, it's image of God restored. Where are we at? Self-service, Christ's methods alone, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Self-service. T is total consecration, surrender, and sanctification. Total. Not a partial. A partial won't cut it. We need total consecration, total surrender, total sanctification. And for the next A, we have absolute forgiveness. And all these things that we could go further into with more time, but we just kind of have to touch on each one. Absolute forgiveness, and that's the understanding that you've been absolutely forgiven. But if we do fall, if we do trip up, we have an advocate with the Father. But we also need to make sure that we are absolutely forgiving others. Everything in our past, everyone that's hurt us in our past, everything that's happened, we need absolute forgiveness. Okay. And then and I have in parentheses a testimony of a woman in Africa. You might have heard it, and it was horrible what happened to her. But the man who killed her husband with like a machete to the head, and it was horrible. It's horrendous. But the forgiveness that she had led her to minister to those in prison that had been done all the horrible acts, all the atrocities, all the murder, all the slashing. And it was one of those men who she was ministering to who was the same one that took that machete and did that to her husband. And her act of kindness broke him down and made him a new man. That absolute forgiveness. U is unceasing prayer, and we're told to pray unceasingly. The R is return to practical and primitive godliness. So there's a lot to develop here. These are primitive godliness. And then once we get finished with this, we're going to go into a little bit about how the vision for our part of the finishing the work, our part that I've seen God give me the vision to how we can help get more people involved in finishing the work. So return to primitive godliness. A is awareness of Satan's lies and deceptions. That's a long one. And God's prophetic revelations. And that has to do with discernment and eye salve. We need the eye salve for understanding the wiles of Satan, his deceptions, his ways, and also that's clearly distinguished from what God's doing. You know, it's interesting how, a lot of these examples in the Bible, the wheat and the tares. The wheat and the tare, right? You've studied that where while they're growing, before they mature, they look the same. They're indistinguishable to some degree. But it's once they are fully developed, then you know which one's the bad stuff and which one's the good stuff. So before that time, if you don't have discernment, it's not going to be clear. It's not going to be understood. We need awareness of Satan's lies and deceptions and God's prophetic revelations. T, second to last one, is time with Jesus. And we have the idiom. Is that an idiom? By beholding, we become changed. And there's for tomorrow's Sabbath school, I got tomorrow's Sabbath school. It's going to be inspired from Ministry of Healing, chapter 3, in communion with God and nature. And that's a crucial part of Christ's life of power, was in nature, and how and very, very intentional about his time in nature. Of course, he ministered a lot to people in nature, taught lessons from nature, but in addition to that, he spent time alone, away from the crowds, alone with communion with God, his Father, and with his very creation. Time with Jesus, by beholding we become changed in communion with God and in nature and his word. And the last one, A, all in for Christ Jesus. Exclamation point. Mm-hmm. All in for Christ Jesus. And then I put no matter the costs. So whatever the cost may be, if I have to crawl across a sea of glass and shards and to get there, is like to reach the lost or whatever. I want the strength to do that. I want the power. I don't have the power within myself to do that. Sorry?
We count it glory to die for Christ.
Amen, brother. We count it glory to die for Christ, for those watching on video. So that is what God helped me work out with the Imago Dei Restaurata, the image of God restored. And it's still in development, so I appreciate feedback. There's a bunch of other notes I put down that can fit in somewhere. So if we're training somebody up, if I'm training somebody up in medical missionary work, I can spend like a whole day on each of these things. There are 18 altogether, Imago Dei Restaurata, 18 letters. And we had even talked about, it's like, what if we did a lifestyle session where each day was, 18 days, and you cover the whole, they get not just the, but it really digs into the spiritual aspect, the relationship Christ. So that is the Imago Dei Restaurata. And now we want to talk a little bit about, we're going to erase this, if anybody wanted to take a snap of that. And then there's this one here. Now we want to talk a little bit about the ministry that God gave me this ministry name a couple years ago. You might be in the way there. Oh. The ministry name is Eden Restoration Project. And that name means a lot to me because not that it's something personal, but it just covered, it encapsulated, we can erase that. Okay. How I wanted to help finish the work. The Eden Restoration Project, the meaning behind the name is, what would we have in the beginning? We had the Garden of Eden. We have Adam in the garden. And in Adam in the garden, before his fall, had the image of God, image and likeness of God. He had the character of God, except it wasn't fully developed character, right? So the Eden Restoration Project, before, we can't restore physical Eden. God's going to restore physical Eden to the earth. Before he does that, spiritual Eden has to be restored in the hearts of his children. So that innocence, that primitive godliness, he's looking to restore that in our hearts, in our lives. So it covers the scope of the ministry, restoring Eden, that pre-fall, that pre-Adamic fall, where he had innocence, he had that primitive godliness. So I won't go over like every detail about that, but part of what we want to share in these last remaining minutes, and then we'll have a break, so we have some time between our presentation and the solar. Give everybody time to and switch out, give Leighton some time. So part of Eden Restoration Project is to for one thing, get people connected. And God's had us on the road a lot, going to travel in different places. We live in South Dakota, Black Hills, South Dakota. And we have ministry things. It's funny how, and I'll let Stacy talk, for I've been...
No, you're good.
It was interesting how things developed for us out there, where we just saw a need for the community to be reached, for one thing, because we should know that it's, you could have a lifestyle center. You could be bringing people in from all over the country, from San Francisco to New York City, and a lot of those people are Adventists, right? We want to reach the non-Adventists too, of course. And we want to reach those who are right in our community, right around us. And so we saw that need, and God led us into a children's ministry out there, and it just kind of like developed. We didn't say, hey, we should have a children's ministry. I love working with kids. It's like, it just came out of the blue. Yep. We were out playing tennis, and here these kids show up, and long story short, God helped us with that, and we have wonderful testimonies for that. And that thing about the kids ministry, it opens people were coming up and saying, oh, I love that you're working with the kids, and they want to cooperate, or they want to help out some way. And so a lot of great things. We're praying about properties out there. One is an abandoned campground, and just a perfect spot. Okay, so just so you know, it's near Mount Rushmore. I don't know if I'm repeating myself, but it's near Mount Rushmore. It's in the town of Keystone. Keystone is 300 people, 327, I think. But during the winter, it's dead. There's nobody there. No cars. All the hotels, you see these, it's a little town, but all these hotels are just shut down. There's a couple things open. And in the summertime, of course, it's jam-packed. And, you get these patriotic people that love the Lord and easy to talk to. You don't get into arguments about, it's like, oh, I'm going to share, and they're going to spit in my face or any of that. So it's just great people for the most part, and we seeing that they're not being reached. We wanted to reach them. And so it all started with that.
Yeah. And can I say something real quick about
of course.
Just the
Please.
children's ministry?
Yeah.
Because the children's ministry was something, like Chris said, God placed in our lap, and we didn't expect. I mean, I love kids, but I'm like, do I really love them that much? I mean, I don't have any kids, and it's good when they go home. But it was amazing how the Lord brought this ministry and made those connections. And what our plan was then, when the ministry started, we had such success with these kids. We started doing team building things, and it was very, very natural us talking about the Lord. Because how do you introduce the Lord to the kids, right? And one of the first events we had is we had a big black cat that we were taking pictures with, and we put him all over town.
It's like a puma.
Yeah, it was like a puma. And he was a
panther or something.
A stuffed cat.
Yeah, it was a stuffed cat. He
And
wasn't
so we
stuffed animal.
And it was Chris's idea, actually, to have like a map and compass, and then we were going to use the street map to find where the puma was, and we had the little text pictures coming in where he was. But the most important thing is we started off with a prayer, which was really awesome. The kids all prayed, and we made sure that they understood that no matter if you're lost, God could find you. And along the way, we kind of it's just so natural. We were at a historical center where there was a wishing well. And I said, how many of you believe in wishes? And, there's like maybe one girl. And I said, it's good because, wishes, there's no such thing as wishes, but we have God and we have prayer, and He answers prayers. And so while I was walking away, a little 9-year-old boy came up to me. He says, he says, we don't go to church anymore, and I don't understand why. So it just opened those doors for us to be able to talk about the Lord. And then with this Eden Restoration Project, we began to realize that the children really are the key to reaching the parents. And so what we ended up doing is we figured we would be this blueprint. All these events that we were having with the kids, we would start recording and make it easier for other people to start these ministries. And our plan was, and it's still our plan, to hopefully go to churches and say, okay, we went to the Boys and Girls Club. We were into the Boys and Girls Club. We're like, we showed up there one day. We're like, we have a children's ministry. Can we come and can we do this? And they were like, yeah, no problem. So what we're trying to do is bridge that gap and get other people in church involved in the children's ministry, and then we hand it off. So, but the children's ministry is really, really important because it was that first thing that the Lord brought us that I really think still needs to be developed in all of our churches.
Yeah, just real quick, we did like skill developing and team building exercises, and this was just once a week, so we had all week to kind of plan it out. And one of the things we did was that day we had 3 events, but one of the events was a little survival course. And on the table, and this was Stacy's station, but on the table they had a backpack, and on the table was spread all kinds of items you could take, because they knew that the Felix, this little stuffed cat, he was across the way, and they had to get across there with this little planks of wood that they had to step together on. You seen those? And before they got to that, they had to pack we showed them how to fold the blanket over the sticks so they could set the injured patient on there and carry. Yeah. So we had that, but they also had the backpack, all these supply items. Survival items, and they had to choose what they should take. And the Bible was there. And they either took the Bible or later it was like, oh, we forgot the Bible. So it was just so wonderful to see all these kids just like realize that they're how important that was.
Yeah, they all grabbed the Bible. I think there's only one that they forgot the Bible, and they're like, oh, we forgot the Bible. And when we got to the cat, the first thing they brought out was the Bible. And these are not kids that are going to school.
So we got
they recognize.
In the last couple minutes, just to wrap everything up and kind of share how different people from across the country can work together to help finish the work is this idea. So for one thing, you have missionary students. They're graduating. We want to go to Wildwood and share with the students. She's trained out there, and it sounds like they're letting us come out Monday or Tuesday, and we want to for one thing, build these connections and find out these different skills or these different skill voids. Like you have the farming skills and a bunch of other stuff, and then you got this guy over here who wants to learn how to farm. Helping connect those people together. Or here's an outpost. It needs to be. We need therapists and a leader, you know. And then we got people in the couple that I met in Spokane, and they want to get involved, but they not sure where or how, whatever. So connecting those things. Another thing is a goal that God put on my heart to have a lifestyle center in every church. I mean, in the land, but also across, everywhere. Every church should have a lifestyle center. So it doesn't necessarily mean like the church itself is a lifestyle center, which would be great, but at least a family, one family in that church, having a very simple lifestyle center, sanitarium, where they could treat just one person at a time, or they could train some, you know, there's a couple that wants to do it, and then here's a younger couple that wants to get trained. So they could team up. Another thing is having kits, like a starter kit, like let's say $500 kit that a family could purchase, and with that they have the majority, everything they need to get started. And in fact, even a manual. Missionary has a manual on how to do a home lifestyle center. So a bunch of different materials in one purchase, or maybe there could be a beginner, and then even investors that want to purchase those for those who can't afford it. And get these things out there so that all these lifestyle centers, we got these big lifestyle centers like Eden Valley and Wildwood, but for a lot of those places, they're kind of missing the mark, missing the blueprint a lot. So, but because I know from our experience dealing with a board and a president and on down, it becomes about money or pleasing the board or pleasing somebody. But if you have a family doing it, and if you have the training, I mean, Anthony's doing stuff, and a lot of you are doing stuff already. Connie's got her thing going. And so we could make those connections and get the people the resources they need, get the people the training they need, equip them one way or another to get to, so we all could be, I mean, the ultimate goal of every Adventist, can you imagine every Adventist being a medical missionary, right? Wouldn't that be a fantastic goal? And that's us working together, you know, to accomplish that goal. And not everybody's going to be a full-time medical missionary, but we can be missionaries no matter what we're doing for work, or where we're at, whatever. We can have that training to do some of that. So that's a lot of what Eden Restoration Project is about. And then, we'd love to work together with others, and because we see not enough communication going in between. You know, like we said earlier, we're talking about, okay, this place is having great success treating this thing, but over here, they're struggling. They can't figure it out. They don't know. So that communication there. But this place over here that was struggling is having great success on something else. And so many of the people that we've communicated with and discussed this with, they were very open about sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, their practices with us.
And the spirit of
to share with
prophecy,
others.
I'm sorry to interject, but the spirit of prophecy does, if you read the Broken Blueprint or the Medical Missionary Manual, Ellen White is very specific about how we are supposed to help each other. And what has happened to some of these bigger sanitariums is they're not helping each other. And we see that. And we need to come back into harmony and unity. And sooner or later, these big sanitariums, they're going to be phased out. And it's going to be up to us to be the home sanitariums.
Yeah,
and we need to work together.
That's the feeling I've gotten, that that these little pockets are going to be more important in the end. And yeah, the little pockets can fly under the radar. But you know, I'm just wondering in my own mind and thinking that these ones are more visible at the radar level. They're getting what's down the pike for them. I'm wondering. So I'm praying. We got to keep all those things in prayer, all those places in prayer. Come together, work together as teams, and that's what that's mean Restoration Project and Imago Dei Restaurata, and the book. That's what that's all about. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and God bless you all.